Hi guys, I'm Erica. Welcome to Hack Your Health. In today's video, I'm going to give basically a layman terms description of what the specific carbohydrate diet is. So first, I'll give you a little bit of a history of the diet and how it was originally used. And then I'll go into the theory of Crohn's disease that the diet uses, as well as the kinds of carbohydrates that are allowed, basically to give you an understanding of how the diet affects the body and how the diet works. And this is not medical advice in any way. This is basically, I've read the book several times and I did the diet myself and it worked for me. And I'm just sharing what I've learned with others in hopes that it will be helpful. But please make sure to do your own research and to basically take care of yourself. And yeah, so let's get into the video. So the specific carbohydrate diet is used for Crohn's disease, colitis, diverticulitis, celiac disease, and it's also used in children with autism and for some instances of schizophrenia. And that is due basically to the mind-body connection and the inflammation that can be caused by leaky gut, etc. And that is a whole other topic. So for me, I'm going to focus on using the diet for Crohn's disease and colitis, but it can be used for those other diseases as well. So the specific carbohydrate diet was used since, I believe, the 50s, and it was used for children who had celiac disease. And celiac disease back then didn't mean a gluten allergy. It just basically was a digestive issue where you had a lot of diarrhea and failure to grow in children, as well as weight loss and anemia, which is typically what you see in sort of Crohn's colitis patients today. And the woman who wrote the book Breaking the Vicious Cycle, which I 100% recommend that you read if you haven't already, and it will give a much more thorough description and explanation than this video. This is just a kind of an introduction. And essentially, she had a daughter who was about 4 years old when she was diagnosed with colitis. And she suffered for years and years, wasn't growing properly. They went to all kinds of doctors. This was in the 80s. And eventually they found Dr. Haas, and he was treating children with colitis and other digestive issues with the specific carbohydrate diet. And it worked for their daughter, and she was on the diet, I think, for about 7 years. Even though she was healthy for most of those 7 years, they just didn't know how long it was necessary to keep her on the diet, so they just did it for a long time. And since it worked so well and they were telling other people about it and it was also working for them, she went back to school and she got a master's degree studying the immune system and food and the intestinal tract, basically, and how this diet would help people heal their intestines and their digestion. So it's a very well-researched book, and it gives you a lot of clinical trials and other studies that you can read up on if you like. And currently, since then, at Seattle Children's Hospital, they've been doing clinical trials with children in the specific carbohydrate diet with very good success. So the success rate seems to fall between 80 to 90% on this diet. And I think that there's a chance that some of that is just due to how hard it can be to adhere to. So it works for a very large majority of people who do it, which is extremely encouraging. And it doesn't come with side effects and other issues other than some of the social problems that can come along with a limited diet, but it is temporary. So anyways, that's a little bit of the history of the diet. So now we can get into how it works. So essentially, the theory of Crohn's disease that's given at the doctor's office is that your immune system is attacking itself, and that's why your body needs its immune system to be suppressed and all that. So the theory of Crohn's disease that's behind the specific carbohydrate diet is different than that. So essentially, it goes by there's an overgrowth of bacteria not necessarily harmful bacteria in and of itself, but it becomes harmful when it's overpopulated and basically out of balance with the other kinds of bacteria that should be there. So in Crohn's disease patients, there is definitely a very messed up, not healthy microbiome. And the specific carbohydrate diet aims to address that. So the problem with having a overgrowth of, let's call them bad bacteria, but they're only bad because they're overgrown, basically. And what they do is they eat carbohydrates that are in food, and when they digest those carbohydrates, they produce acid. And when this is happening in a very large quantity, the acid will start to damage the walls of the intestines. Also, this overgrowth can sometimes be in the small intestine as well as the large intestine in cases of Crohn's disease and other digestive issues. And there's not supposed to be any bacteria in the small intestine. So that is actually a very significant problem to have a bacterial overgrowth there. So basically, as this happens, it starts to damage the walls of the intestines. And as they become damaged, they become even less able to break down carbohydrates, and that leaves even more carbohydrates for those bacteria to break down. And basically the walls of your intestines have these microvilli. They're kind of like finger-like hairs or little tiny projections that are very ridged, and is basically to increase the surface area of your intestines so they have more places where they come into contact with the partially digested food, and that gives it more opportunity to break it down and digest it and absorb it. However, those get very damaged when this overgrowth situation is happening with the acid, etc. Furthermore, your immune system will try to get rid of those overgrown bacteria. So this is where the theory diverges from the typical one that you hear. In this theory, the immune system is attacking that overgrown bacteria, trying to get rid of it because it's harming your body. And essentially, because there's not really a big differentiation in terms of space and it's all messed up, it also damages your intestines as it's trying to get rid of that bad bacteria. And that leaves your body even less able to break down food and to absorb nutrients properly. It also leaves holes or ulcerations in the walls of the intestines, which can let undigested food that's not supposed to be absorbed into your bloodstream, because basically the protective lining of your digestive system, your intestines in particular, isn't there or isn't working properly or is incomplete. So it can lead to a lot of different issues and inflammation. And you can try to treat this with either suppressing the immune system or with antibacteria. What are they called? Antibiotics. But those don't have a long-lasting effect. Generally, it also kills a bunch of the beneficial bacteria that you actually still need. So it's not a very optimal solution. So the specific carbohydrate diet aims to starve off the harmful bacteria while feeding and nourishing your body so you can heal. Basically, it allows carbohydrates which are easy for your body to use without needing to break them down further. So the sugars that are in most vegetables and that are in fruit, the sugars in honey, for example, are easy for your body to absorb and use without breaking them down. You can also eat fermented dairy, such as homemade yogurt or most kinds of cheeses that are real cheeses that are made through fermentation processes, because those use a bacterial culture that breaks down the lactose into single sugar molecules, and then your body is also able to digest it in most cases. However, it does not allow things like starch, which is a very long and complex chain of glucose molecules that involves a lot of breaking down before your body can absorb and use it. And if the walls of your intestines are in that damaged state, they won't be able to do that. So it's just providing a lot of food and energy for the bacteria. So it removes those in order to starve the bacteria of their energy source and give your body the chance to heal. So as those slowly and more gradually get deprived of the starches and those hard to break down carbohydrates that they used to thrive off of but are no longer getting, those populations will die off and allow a more balanced microbiome to reestablish itself. And it's also important to include things like yogurt, as long as you can tolerate it, and other probiotic foods in order to reintroduce beneficial bacteria to the microbiome as well. So essentially what the diet seeks to do is to provide very nourishing food. It's definitely still including foods which are high in nutrients, while also depriving those bacteria which are causing problems from having a consistent food source. And this needs to be done for quite some time to make sure that those populations don't make a comeback. If you get off the diet too soon, they might still be there in large enough numbers that if you started to eat those kinds of foods again, it could set off this vicious cycle again. So essentially it needs to be done for a year to 3 years for most people in order to make sure that the healing is complete. And in most children, in these studies and in the book, they did recover and they started to grow properly after some time on the diet. It's normal to have a couple of setbacks within the first 2 to 3 months or so. A lot of people will have some relapse of symptoms that's generally not as severe as they were before. So it does take some time, but at the same time, it often very frequently provides thorough and complete lifelong health. So it's definitely a difficult diet to stick to, but at the same time, the results are so amazing that it's well worth the effort. That's how it was in my case, at least, and in the cases of other people who I've encountered as well. And I'm really happy to answer any questions that you have, and leave them in the comments or any experiences that you'd want to share. And I think that that's basically the layman terms version that I can provide of this diet. It really is just trying to nourish your body and starve those harmful bacteria and allow your body the chance to heal. And basically, a lot of the other issues will sort of resolve themselves as the intestine heals. Like, for example, the inflammation or the pain in the joints. In my experience, that just went away. I think it was because the barrier, as your intestine heals, the barrier that it's supposed to form between the food that's coming through, only parts of your food are meant to be digested and the rest is passed as waste. So sometimes things that aren't supposed to be absorbed are getting into the bloodstream due to the damaged intestinal walls, and that can cause a lot of inflammation in the body. So by repairing those, a lot of those other issues will tend to fade away. That was my experience. And of course, this is not medical advice. I'm just letting you know this is my experience and this is the theories that I've followed, and this is the book that you should read if you want to learn more of it. That's Breaking the Vicious Cycle. So I hope that this is helpful to you, and let me know if you have questions. Thank you so much for watching, and all the best on your healing journey. Okay, bye.